How's it going, guys? Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you. I am going to be talking about the I'll get to that in a second. I am going to be talking about the Maxpedition Excelsa size large. Really, really good knife. And if you just want to see what I think of it, if you should buy it or not, hey, great blade. You know, I've done quite a bit with it. I've been very impressed. Before I get into the actual review, though, I want to speak to a couple of house cleaning things. The first one is to thank all of you who are subscribing. You know, when I started doing this, the number 300 was not even, I was like, man, I'll probably never get there. And so a month and a half ago or so, I passed 300 subs. That's really cool for me. Now, I know some of you watching have 300,000 or something, and that's great. But for me, 300 is really good, and I'm really happy with that. The other thing I want to quickly speak to is the Cold Steel CRKT lawsuit. That's what I almost said a second ago. I think it's a stupid move on Cold Steel's part. You know, yes, with the sentiment of what they're saying, that CRKT should not claim their lock system makes a folding knife a fixed blade, that's legitimate. And I've said that, and other YouTubers, I think Nothing Fancy said it 5 years ago or something. So I don't know why Cold Steel decided to make an issue out of it now. I do think it's a dumb move, a classless move on their part, and certainly, you know, lowers their sort of cool factor in my mind. All right, now, am I going to stop doing business with Cold Steel? A lot of people have said, hey, I'm done with Cold Steel, forget that. If they're going to make a move like that, I'm not interested in working with them anymore. Well, I want to offer this observation about that. If you start to analyze carefully all of the people and places that you do business with on a regular basis, you know, do you have a computer that runs Windows 8? Because if you do, you may find some of the marketing and some of the business practices that Microsoft engages in not that acceptable. Okay, I know for years and there may still be companies who are forced to buy DOS from them because they signed a contract, you know, 100 years ago and they can't get out of it. There are, you know, Walmart. Tons of people have issues with Walmart's business practices. I personally have issues with some of the political agendas that they provide a lot of funding to. But I don't stop doing business with Walmart. Okay, the Shriners, I disagree with the religious aspect of Shriners. I strongly disagree with. But if the Shriner Circus comes to town, I would still take my kid, because here's what I don't believe. I don't believe that me paying for a service is an endorsement of every single thing that person ever did. You know, if I call a plumber and get him to fix my plumbing, I don't ask him, you know, where he is morally and politically on every issue. Okay, I just get him to do the job and go home. And so I don't think spending money on a certain product is an out-and-out endorsement of everything that company has ever done or ever said. Okay, so for that reason, I don't think it's really legitimate to say I'm not going to do business with Cold Steel anymore. Now, maybe you just don't like Cold Steel. That's totally fine. Lynn Anderson does have one of those weird attitudes, although I have been told that in person he's a very personable guy. He's really kind and helpful and generous in person. I know in the videos he certainly has a persona that he seems to want to market. Anyway, that's my rant on those two things. That's my rant on the Cold Steel lawsuit. It is a really dumb thing, and I wish it wouldn't have happened. But you know, there are a lot of businesses who do things that I wish they wouldn't do. Now, again, the more important part of this is thanking those of you who are subbing. That's really cool, and I really appreciate that you like the videos. And of course, I really like making them. So we can all have a lot of fun here, and that's the main goal of the channel. I make these videos because I enjoy them, and I hope you enjoy them too. There you go. All right, now, let's get back to what we really want to talk about, which is the Maxpedition Excelsa. Very good knife, okay? And there's a number of reasons why. I think by way of introduction, I should say that what it is actually really cool. So we've got a full titanium frame lock. It is good quality titanium, D2 steel, so we've got pretty high quality materials. They are well put together. The manufacturing, the fit and finish on this is more than adequate for its price point, and so you're getting, you know, there are some budget tie frame locks out there. There are a bunch of them from Boker. There's some from Charade and other companies, but few of them are pulled off as well as this one and as functionally good as this. You know, this blade shape, this design is a very good design, and it comes in at a very, very comfortable price. I think around $110 is what you can get these for, which is very, very good. Even a lot of the Bokers, which have had all kinds of issues, usually don't come in at $110. All right, so that's if you're looking for a nice tie frame lock that's useful and durable, and you don't want to spend $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, I think this is a really good option. Maybe even the best option that's out there. Okay, now let's get into the specifics on this, and I'll tell you why I think it's a really good blade. Size and weight is basically right where it needs to be. Now, it's not exceptional in size or weight. It's not super huge, it's not super small, it's not super heavy, it's not super light, but we've got 8 3/8 inches here. Blade length is just over 3.5 inches, so 3 9/16. The handle length on this is 4 3/4. So very, you know, all of those numbers are pretty much right where they need to be, and I think Maxpedition was aiming for a large, rather hard use EDC knife, and I think they've nailed it, certainly in terms of size and weight. They've got a very good size and weight for our EDC, not to mention a very capable folding knife. Okay, now what about the blade? That's the next thing we always talk about. Oh wait, I didn't tell you the weight on this. 5 1/4 ounces, so 5.25 ounces, which again is totally fine. It's a little heavy. You know, there are knives that are almost this size that weigh closer to 4 ounces, but you've got a full titanium frame, and it's fairly thick pieces of titanium, not to mention a fairly thick piece of D2 steel, so I'm not going to complain about that weight at all. Okay, so let's carry on, and I'll try to zoom in here and let you look at some of the aspects of this knife in a little more detail. And thankfully the remote is going to work well. Some of you have probably seen a couple videos where it doesn't want to cooperate with me. Anyway, so here's that blade in a closer, with a closer look. As I said, just over 3.5 inches. It is a full flat grind. I like the way that they've cut back here, and I also like the way they've got this nice cutout here for sharpening, so that you can sharpen right to the bottom of the blade. It is D2 steel, and D2, although it's not a highly expensive steel, it is a very good steel. I have had great success with the D2 knives that I own. They always take a great edge, and they hold a great edge, and in fact what I would say about D2 is it performs, you know, to me it seems to perform better than it should. Normally, as I'm sharpening a knife, that's giving me a pretty good indication of how well it's going to hold an edge. However, I find D2 sharpens up pretty easily, but then also holds an edge really well. So that's really nice. I would compare it to some other steels that I found to be that way. CTXX HP, which is apparently just a stainless version of D2, 14C28N, 154 cm. Even S30V, although S30V can be a little tougher to sharpen, but it does hold an edge really well. Anyway, D2 is a great steel. It's not stainless, okay? So if you're going to put this knife away for a long time and not use it, make sure you put some oil on this blade to protect it from possible corrosion. And you may want to do that even in your regular use if you live in a humid area, or, you know, if you're like around here, it's summertime and so it's getting quite warm. That's why you can hear the windows open and some vehicles going by. Okay, so very good blade. Now, in terms of this grind, it's a thicker grind. Seems to be, to me, that they were aiming more for toughness and durability than they were necessarily slicing ability, because it's pretty thick here behind the edge. However, having said that it's pretty thick behind the edge, it actually cuts really well. And I've done all of my favorite slicing tests. I've cut cheese and apples and tomatoes, and it actually performs really well. Now, does it perform as well as, say, a Spedico Delica? No, it doesn't. But it performs better than other blades that are, you know, similar thickness. So they've done something right here for sure in getting that. The angle here is fairly gentle, I will say that, and maybe that contributes to it. So it's not an extremely abrupt angle, which means you're kind of, you know, yes, you're pushing more material through the substrate, but it's going to be a gentle increase. The other cool thing I like about this is that they've rounded the back spine here, so it's really comfortable if you're going to choke up and do any kind of finer, detailed work. All right, so that's my take on this blade. Really good blade, and one of the cool things about this blade is it avoids a common pitfall of full flat grinds. Because I've said they did grind it thicker, you've still got lots of steel out here. You're not going to easily break that tip off. It's not like, you know, other knives where I've got a Yojimbo and I'm really careful with that thing because that tip would break if you just look at it the wrong way. This is going to be a very robust tip, so that's really nice if you're planning to use your knife in a construction setting or somewhere where it might get dropped or where you want to depend on a little bit of strength. I think this is a great option. Okay, so that's the blade. I'm really liking this blade. It's D2 steel, which I'm a fan of. Full flat grind, which makes it very versatile. It is a little thicker, which is going to make it tough, but I can tell you, even though, as I said, it looks thick, it actually performs really well. Now, let's talk about lockup and deployment. It is only one side thumb stud, okay? That means if you're a lefty, you're going to have to take this out. It does come out, there's a Torx bit here, so take it out, flip it the other way, and then actuate the knife this way. That said, notice how the lock bar comes very close to this. You know, although it's possible to turn this the other way, it's not going to be very comfortable, not nearly as comfortable as it is right-handed, where you've actually got this not only cut out but also chamfered to allow your finger to get easy access. Now, one thing I want to say about this is in a lot of the videos they talk about this not being angled right, and I've tried to look closely and pause those videos and look at older pictures. I think they've changed the angle on this thumb stud. It's a blur style thumb stud where you can see. Let's see if I can get an angle where you can observe it easily. Maybe like that. You can see how it's cut on an angle this way. It's not just a typical round, you know, pyramid-shaped thumb stud. It is specifically cut on this angle to where your thumb can push. And actually, I think they got the angle pretty well right. Now, initially, a lot of complaints were mentioned about this. And that's why I think they've changed the angle, because this one is totally comfortable and I have no problem at all flipping this knife open. Even now today, this was not my EDC today, so I'm not really, it's not like I've been practicing opening and closing this for the last hour. I can just naturally grab a hold of it and it flips out no problem. Now, it is on washers, which I actually really like, especially for an EDC and especially for a hard use EDC. If you're marketing a knife as hard use, I sincerely think you should be using washers in the pivot rather than ball bearings. I know there are some knives that I'm specifically picking on by saying that, but that's just my take. I just feel like there's less to go wrong with washers than there is with a ball bearing pivot. Okay, it is a frame lock, and it's a very comfortable frame lock. You know, it opens nicely. There's no lock bar insert, which is something we're pretty well used to seeing all the time now. This knife, when it was designed, I don't think the lock bar insert was as much of a major component of frame locks as it is now, so it was pretty much normal. It does have an over travel stop, okay, so that's pretty neat. It's nice to see the over travel stop there, and really, you know, although a lock bar insert is nice, it's not absolutely critical, okay. So what else do I have to say about this? Oh yeah, this is quite thin, and this is one of the complaints I have on a lot of Thai frame locks. If you're going to make a really hard use knife, if you've watched the Cold Steel video where they test the 0300, it fails right here in this cutout. Now the cutout is necessary because you've got to make it so you can move the lock bar, okay, but in my mind that cut, the piece of titanium right here should be as thick as humanly possible to add strength to the knife. Now, I'll show you one other thing about this. Sorry about that. Here is my zero tolerance 0560, and if you notice the cutout, it's on the outside. So here's the cutout here where my finger is. That's a better design than what they've done here with the lock bar cutout with the relief cut on the inside, because there's sort of a cantilever effect then. The force can't directly transfer into the frame. It's got to kind of move around, which is never as good. It's much preferable to have a direct transfer of force here. Now, it does change the look of the blade, okay? So it looks cleaner on the outside. Let's see. Here's a zero tolerance 0801, And you can see how these lines, it's got this nice line pattern, and the line pattern is broken up by the way this relief cut is positioned here. And so I understand from a design standpoint why you would want to move this cutout to the inside where it's invisible. It does add a level of continuity to the frame. I'll give you one other example. The Benchmade, am I on the frame side? Yeah. The Benchmade 761, you can see how they've put the cutout on the inside as well. And it does make for an attractive looking handle. And so from a design standpoint, makes perfect sense. But from an engineering standpoint, you'd like to see it the other way. Okay, so not the end of the world. Certainly it's strong enough, and I will say even with the cutout on the inside, like the 0300, it does create a weak point in the frame, and that's exactly where it failed. And I would suggest, I'd like to see Cold Steel test a number of other frame locks to see if that happens over and over again or not, but we'll see what happens with that. Those videos, by the way, are really fun to watch. Now, let's add, the pocket clip is not reversible to left hand, but it is reversible to tip down. So you can do right hand tip up or right hand tip down, but you can't do left hand at all, okay? It is it's neat how they've done this, where they cut out a little piece here so that with one screw you still get a very solid pocket clip. They did just leave it open up here, which for the price point is fine. You can see right above my finger there's a little cutout for this to be moved. It would have been nice to see a little stainless steel insert in there or something, but I understand the price point of this knife, that's really, you would not expect to see it. Okay, lanyard hole is very well placed. The blade's not going to interfere with your lanyard at all, and it's definitely big enough for 550 cord. So overall, this knife is just a really, really nice blade. Ergonomics are good. That's about the only thing I haven't talked about. We did work our way from the pivot right down, so the only thing I didn't talk about is really ergonomics, and it's very comfortable in hand. It's not terribly grippy, okay? This is not the strongest gripped knife ever. It's a little slick, actually. It is sort of a blasted finish, but it's not like a Chris Reeve knife where that blasted titanium is really, really tactile. This is much smoother, okay? So, overall, this is a very, very good knife, and if you consider the price point, okay, then that even puts it into a whole new category. This is actually what I'm going to call an excellent knife for its price, because you're getting good steel, you're getting good build quality, you're getting good fit and finish, you're getting high-end materials, and it's all put together in a very functional design for only a little over $100. Now you can pay, I've seen these as high as $140. Even at $140, you're still not in, you're not inappropriate at that price point, but it's going to function very well, and it's going to be a really, really usable knife for you, I think. And consider the fact that, there's not too much out there of this quality level. I know there are some Bokers, but even most of those Bokers are not coming in at $140. They're all more than that. I think there may be one or two that have that price point. So there you go, guys. That's my take on the Maxpedition. There's a good close-up for you. That's my take on the Maxpedition Excelsa. Really great blade. I really enjoy using it. Nice blade to have in the collection, and it holds up well. It stacks up well against other very expensive tie frame locks. Now it's not as good as this is, but I would compare it favorably to the 801, definitely. I would compare it favorably to lots of different frame locks, especially if you start looking in its price range, that, between $100 and $150. You're dealing with a lot of Bokers like the Epicenter and the Monero, the Charades, I think, are around that price point. And this definitely comes out well ahead of most of those, okay? So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will definitely enjoy this knife, and we'll talk to you soon.